Welcome to Friendeavor, the podcast, the weekly podcast where we explore the highs and lows of friendship with your hosts, Danielle and Kayla.
As we journey through life, our friendships often evolve and change, ebb and flow, and sometimes even come to an end. Danielle and I are lifelong advocates for the power of friendship, and we are here to guide all of us through the many challenges and joys that come with building and maintaining strong, meaningful connections with those around us.
Join us each week as we deep dive into the intricacies of friendship, from navigating conflicts to fostering new relationships and everything in between. With insightful interviews, personal anecdotes, and expert advice, Friendeavor is the perfect podcast for anyone looking to strengthen their bonds with the people they love.
So, whether you are on the go, taking care of chores, or just settling in, get ready to explore the world of friendship on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Friendeavor. I'm your host, Danielle.
And it's Kayla. What's up?
And we are in a little bit of a situation. As always, we're never not in a situation where our third mic is not working. And you might be asking yourself, or asking us, why do we need a third mic? It's because we have in the studio with us today a very special guest. We have one Monique. Thank you so much for being with us.
I am so thankful that you guys asked me to be here. I'm so excited. I love Friendeavor.
I'm so glad. You were slated as on our interview list when we made this first season. You've been on there since the beginning. And
Yay.
I'm glad that we got the dates sorted out and everything for you to be on here with us. So thanks for joining us.
Yes. And let's just introduce Monique for those who don't know her.
Yeah.
Which shouldn't be very many people.
Yeah. So Monique is a very good friend of mine, and I feel like there's no one better to introduce Monique than Monique. So Monique, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Monique. Hi, guys. I live in the same city as Danielle. We go to the same church. Yes, shout out EG, shout out TRC, CMY TRC.
Woo!
And we have been friends for a very long time now, and same with Kayla. And people pretty much know me as being outspoken, a little loud, unfortunately. I feel like I am an introvert, but I've been told I'm an extrovert. So
The biggest lie.
I don't know. We'll have to find out. We'll find out during this episode.
We will indeed. Well, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And also, guys, not only do we have the problem with the third microphone, so you'll hear Kayla sporadically, as it were. My chair is also squeaking. Did you guys hear that? It keeps like crack-a-lacking every time. I need to get a new one. But as a thank you, Monique, for being on the pod.
Are you kidding me? Okay,
We have a Life is Better with Friends crew neck for you. We have the gray one. And so we just wanted you to be part of the fam. So here's this for
Thank
you.
I'm going to wear this to work tomorrow.
Please do. And send me a photo so we can put it on the podcast.
110%. I'll do my hair since I'm wearing this.
All right. So when we originally slated this episode, we wanted to talk about your experience living abroad with friends, because unlike a lot of people, you have quite a bit of experience with that because you've gone on missions trips and extended time abroad. But I didn't want to just limit you just to that. So we're going to kick it off with that. But if I've known you at all, there will be some rabbit trails from you, from me, from Kayla. So let's just kick it off. Tell us a little bit about your experience, where you've lived, how long you've been in certain places, and we'll just start there.
Absolutely. So I have lived abroad, and I have lived abroad with friends. With a friend. Mm-hmm. So it's been the same friend, Sarah Ann. I think what worked for us before we ever lived abroad, we lived together. Okay. So we kind of knew the ins and outs, which I have gone with other friends as well. But Sarah was like my ride or die because she knew like down to the types of foods I would eat, because I'm a very picky eater. Down to even like how hot and cold the house could be, what times I slept. She knows that I've been getting better, but I'm not one to sleep more than 5 hours a night. And so she knew to buy melatonin before we left for the trip and bring it along so that she could get sleep.
So she could get some sleep.
Yes. So it ended up working out very nicely because we knew each other so well that we were able to fill in where one person forgot something, the other one could pick up the slack there.
That's awesome.
And there's not like, I have lots and lots of friends, but I don't have a ton of friendships where I'm that comfortable, especially when it's traveling abroad.
Right.
But that was one thing that made it really nice is that we had already had that relationship where we knew each other so well.
Okay.
And I've had other travels where I went with friends and we didn't know each other that well. We still had a great time. It was wonderful. But that was one of the things. That was my first really big trip out of country. And so that was one of the things that really got me through it. There's a lot more to that story, but that was one of the main things was her knowing me so well.
Yeah.
So we were able to balance it out. Because
That's
there's
awesome.
a lot that comes when you live somewhere for more, you're going for more than just a vacation. You know, you experience loneliness. There's a lot. So having someone that can help balance that out really helps.
Yeah. So not only did you take a roommate type relationship, you also took a best friendship abroad with you.
Yes.
You weren't forced into this situation once you got there.
Yeah.
It wasn't circumstance that brought you together.
Right. It was totally different. And while we were there, actually, we both had pretty devastating things that had happened. Hers, obviously, I don't speak about it lightly, but she had lost a sibling while we were there and she had to leave. And then I had lost my uncle, my mom's baby brother, unexpectedly on the same trip.
Wow.
They were, I think it was like 2 days apart. It was a very strange thing that I've never experienced again, thankfully.
Yeah.
But even just those hours being able to be together and have someone, because again, we were there when we were in Germany, we were there for a missions trip. And while it was great, it was wonderful to see Europe, there was a lot of loneliness. And part of that was we did not know the language well. It was our very first time there. And on top of that, we didn't have any of our comforts that we were used to. Right. So the first 2 weeks, all we did was party, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, it goes in, right. We were, pictures, we were Paris, everything you could think of we were doing. But when it goes into month 2 and month 3, that's when you kind of started, you know, feeling, you know, because you would see everyone back home. You'd see your family together.
Life is progressing.
Yes.
And it's like you're on the outside looking in.
Right. And so there was that loneliness. And because we didn't know the language, we stayed in a village too. We did not stay, you know, on a base. We didn't stay on the base. We stayed just in the dead middle of the village and no one in the village spoke English.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, someone probably did, but we didn't encounter
not
those
someone
people.
In your circle.
Right. And so there was a lot of loneliness because there was times where it was just us two. And so thankfully, I felt it when she left. I mean, it was tough when she left. I definitely felt the difference.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. You never think, when you think like, oh, I'm traveling with a friend, you think the photos and the partying and all that stuff. You don't really think about the life aspect of it as it is.
Yeah.
At least I never have. I don't know if you have, Kayla, but that's not something that I've ever thought of.
Yeah. And I'm sure tagging into that loneliness concept, like there were times where you guys clung to each other even more because nobody else spoke the language and everything. And I'm sure there were times because you were lonely and because you didn't have all the comforts that you were used to at home that maybe you guys got into it a little bit more.
Yeah. Definitely. So there are times even for example, here, so y'all are sisters. Here, if you want to go run to Temple and grab a coffee, you don't technically need Danielle to go with you and you're fine. And Danielle knows there's a really good chance you're going to be safe and you're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Well, for us, we didn't have a vehicle. So all of our traveling was together. And so if I wanted to run downtown to downtown Wiesbaden, I couldn't just hop on the bus and go alone. Mm-hmm. We needed to stick together at all times because we were two single women who did not know the language. And there were times where Sarah would be really tired or I would be really tired or the weather would be just a bit too cold and one person didn't want to go out. But one really needed to be out and mingling with people because that's just what they were feeling for that day. You know, sometimes the loneliness would drive you to just want to be around people. Mm-hmm. And so that was the part that was also interesting too, is having to balance like, okay, well, you don't want to go out, but I want to go out. And we need to go out together because we do need to stay safe. We're here for missions. We're not just here. We didn't move to Europe just, you know, on our own accord. And so there are certain guidelines we needed to follow for safety purposes, especially being two single women. And so it worked with Sarah because we had that relationship, but not everybody. I mean, I've even been in, you know, people that no one would know. I've roomed from people that no one knows that aren't in church. And, you know, things go sour sometimes when you're with people and it just doesn't mesh. Right. So it was nice that it was with a friend because it definitely could have been a situation if it was someone I didn't know especially the lonely aspect. I know I've brought that up, but it's totally different when you're moving somewhere for a long period of time. That aspect, it was nice that it was Sarah.
That actually leads me to my next question. So you're there for missions. How did the body of Christ, how was it the same? Or like what was it the same? I mean, it's the body of Christ, but what was the connectivity? Like how much was the connectivity worth every Sunday? You were looking forward to Sunday. You wanted it to be Sunday because it was like church was coming, right? It was like maybe during the week you were lonely, but the mission was always present. So was that always like the light on the horizon, the end of the tunnel, like it was always coming? Or was it because of the language difference, it wasn't really the light that you needed?
You know, I actually did really look forward to Sundays. At that time, I had a Sunday school kid. Most people know him as Ben Rodriguez. He was my Sunday school kid in Germany, so he had never been to the Rock Church. He had never been to Elk Grove. And he was just a little ball of sunshine. And so he could speak English. So it was just a relief. Jonathan, his brother, I love John, but I don't think John said a word to me the entire time I was in Germany. And so I was a little bit perturbed there because I'm like, listen, the more friends, the better. But me and Ben really connected. So he became like my little buddy. And I just loved him. And we would actually hang out because I was just so desperate for friendship. Usually, you know, I don't hang out a lot with my Sunday school kids. I love them very much, but we don't just like chill on a Wednesday, you know. But Ben and I were definitely chilling. And I remember he was a little chubby kid too. And I was more so ignoring him at this point because, you know, he was little. So there would be times where I was like, okay, oh God, help me. And his little chubby arm, he just wrapped around my neck and he said, we're going to be best friends forever. And I thought, I'm never going to see this kid again.
Oh my God.
Plot twist.
Plot twist.
Yeah.
Major plot twist.
So there was that. I did look forward to church because Ben made it very fun. He was a little kid and he was my favorite Sunday school kid. There were only two that spoke English, and one didn't. He spoke English, but he was mute, aka John.
He refused to speak English.
But Ben made up for the other two, plus John, and like, I mean, and 1,000 more, yeah. So it worked out. It was good, and we are still friends to this day. Surprisingly.
Kayla and I often talk on the podcast when she has a functioning mic. Unfortunately, she does not tonight. But we often talk on the pod about how the body of Christ is just, it's so refreshing when you're in a new environment and you don't know someone. We did the identity episode a few weeks ago. It was actually that lesson that I taught in youth Sunday school. You remember that day? It was a few months ago, or
it was back right after summer. Like, was it fall last year? It was.
Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly what it was, but So I taught that same. We did an episode on that, and so we were talking about the body of Christ and how it's like, you don't have the authority to tell someone else whether or not they're important. Yeah. And so when you're in the connectivity of the body, when it feels like you don't have anything else, it's like the warmth that you didn't know you were cold. Yeah. Until you're around that. And then it's like,
you know what? Home. Speaking of friendships and that, what you just said, to follow off of that, that's what even kept me in the church as a child, because I came on the bus ministry, and it was that feeling of just like how you explained, I felt important, and I came from a very broken home. So just I would not wish that sort of a dynamic on any child. Now that I'm older, you can look back and, you know, see dysfunction. And when the Sunday school bus started picking me up and just the love that I felt, you know, and kids, they don't know. I mean, I was young. They didn't realize that I, you know, maybe stunk, or maybe I didn't have the nicest clothes or whatever. And it was that feeling of love that kept me from that time, you know. I didn't know I didn't know what the Holy Ghost was. I didn't know what any of that was, but I felt the love and acceptance. Yeah. And that's a really big deal. So
that's so beautiful.
Yeah. And while we're talking about the connectivity of the body, I'm going to segue a little bit into mentorship, because that's been over the years more of our relationship, me and Mo. So for those who don't know, Mo used to babysit me. So, And then as a teenager, I wouldn't say we were like friends, but like you mentored me. So we hung out a lot, but it was more of a mentorship type thing. I don't know how much you enjoyed it, so I can't say that we were like besties.
I loved it.
But like now we're friends, like legit friends. So, but yeah, as a teenager, I remember having an older friend. We've talked about this on the podcast before. Having older friends who can mentor you is so important because they've seen things that you haven't seen, and they can detect things that you can't detect, even though you're 15 and you think you know everything. And oh no, it's fine. They have the experience. They can detect things. And Monique was that for me. I have older sisters and everything too, but Monique, I can recall several times where I was just about to get myself into a situation, and sometimes Monique would just kind of let me learn. Like I would talk to her about it and I knew she would disapprove because I could see it all over her face. But sometimes I knew she was like, okay, I'll just let her learn this. And then sometimes she was like, immediately no. Like, Kayla, you need to delete, block this person's number right now. I know. She would tell me this person's saying XYZ behind your back. I just know. And then come to find out that person was saying XYZ behind my back. So given that context, talk about mentorship and I guess just talk about the balance between letting someone learn something for themselves and just getting them out of that situation at all costs.
I cannot stop laughing. XYZ. Well, you and I, we did have a very interesting, very special relationship because Kayla's older sister, Karina, we are the same age and we were just the best of friends. We are still the best of friends. And I kept Kayla and Carly a lot when they were coming up. I don't even know why. Because you had sisters too. I think I was just around and wanted to keep y'all all the time. And I do remember a few times because I was very protective because Kayla was like a little sister to me. And I do remember there were a few times where I was like, dear God, like I have to sit her down and have an entire conversation and tell her she needs to be careful. Don't even look at that boy. Don't talk to that girl. I definitely now can look back and see there were times where I was a little bit bossy and a little bit overwhelming.
Being bossy? Absolutely not.
And I would set her down for hours. I mean, she was probably just agreeing because she was exhausted. Yes, and I'm like, Kayla. I would take her mom's tone.
I was gonna say, are you Kim right now?
Oh, 100%. I am like anybody who has been in Kim Horton's home is a mini Kim. I will tell you that right now. Like, Kayla, we need to have a conversation. Okay, I really don't like that friend.
Yes.
No, but I do think looking back that there are actually things I could have done differently. I do know you were saying like, oh, you were a mentor, and that means so much to me, Kayla. I just love you. But I think there's kind of a fine line between being a mentor and a friend, depending, because we are pretty far apart in age. And I think sometimes I probably came across as like very commanding, like this, not really giving you options, you know? And you were not my child. So I think like you really took what I said to heart and you followed some things. But I think the older I have gotten, there is a fine line between mentorship and friendship. So there's times where you can give and you care, but you have to step back and kind of see how they're taking it. Because I have other friends where they were just like, I feel like you just beat me with what you wanted me to do. And I'm like, yeah, because it's the right thing. 100%. Like,
you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But I would like to interject here in your defense. You also have the older sister balance here, because you're not just a mentor in this situation. You are her older sister's best friend. You were in their home. You had the perspective of both a friend, a mentor, and like a sister. So all these three things working together gave you a perspective that a lot of other mentors will not have.
Yes, definitely gives you a different perspective, because she knew exactly what my mom wanted and what my mom did not want. Like, you were in my home multiple times a week, like, you knew. And a lot of mentors don't have that.
Yeah.
Like, they might not have a relationship with the parent. Monique definitely did. And she would sit me down and say, your mom would not like this. And and I just think the value, there's something to be said about having a mentor that is not an older sister, not a parent, even if you have a good relationship with them. Because, okay, let's face it, as open as you are with your parents, there are just things you don't want to share with them just because it's your mom. Like, I was very close to my mom, and I shared everything. Not everything. I shared a lot with her, but there were some things where just like, I don't want to share it with you, my mom.
And there's some people who don't have a good relationship with their mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they don't, it's not that they don't want to have one. It's just that they don't feel like they can trust them. They turn to people. Yeah. And the issue lies in turning to someone who's not mentor material and someone who is mentor material. Yes. And so in this particular situation with you two, it like checked all the boxes, at least from where I'm sitting on the other side of the room.
And, if your parents are, trustworthy enough, make sure you get their approval on your mentors.
Amen. Yeah.
And if your parents disapprove of someone that you see as a mentor, then even if you don't agree with your parents, you may agree with them down the road. So, make sure your parents approve. And my parents definitely approved. So, but yeah, even having older sisters, I think with that dynamic for me, I wanted to impress them and I wanted them to be proud of me. So when I had something to say that I wasn't super proud of, I went to other people like, Monique, other mentors. And yeah, it's great to have. So I would definitely, if you don't have siblings or even if you do, look into getting older friends who are wise and have experience.
Well, on that subject, as I had said before, I came on the bus, and so my mom, she was, bless her heart, she ended up coming to church a couple of years later, got saved, but she was, she was pretty young. I think she was like 22 or something like that, and she had no idea. She just thought everybody in the church was just an absolute angel, and that's not to say, hey, I'm not here to say that anyone isn't, but she, didn't know, and so there were, I was around a lot of characters coming up. They were older. And I was very young. And some of the stuff I seen them do, it boggled my mind. But again, I take it back to where you were talking about with friendship, where you just feel safe and you're just like, you come to that place. I had found homes because my home was very unsettled. I had found homes where I felt that, where I just felt so safe. I mean, I would sleep solidly through the night. And I'm not a real solid sleeper, but I had felt such safety. And, as a child, that's a really big deal. Yeah. And one of those homes was with my friend Samantha Felt. I just latched on to Sammy, which is Sammy Scott now. Mm-hmm. They're missionaries to Honduras. I just latched on to their family, and they kind of opened up and made a room for me. And the other was the Horton family as I got older, and also the Scott, now Pontius family. So I, even as a kid, there are times when you're saying find a good role model. There is something in you if you allow it, because you can go towards, but there is something I really craved, that whole, the whole
peace.
You're
looking
yes.
for peace.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I latched on, and there was just a lot of things I did not know. And there's even things as you get older, they'll come out and you struggle with. I've had to learn to trust people, to not just completely ice people out, when my tendency would be, if I'm overwhelmed, everybody gets iced out. Nobody can find out what's going on. I don't want to speak to you. I cannot talk to you. And that, but going around those good people who have something to offer and are willing to even give you in those moments where you feel like you're starving. Yeah. That has literally saved me and helped to shape me into, I got a long way to go, but a testimony as compared to what I could have been.
Right.
Had Absolutely. I never been picked up on the bus. The friend group that I have, every single friend adds something to my life, and I'm so thankful for that.
You just heard out there, and I'm not going to go into the details. Monique had dinner with us tonight, so that's why I said out there. But you just heard about what Brett, Kara, and I could have become. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not going to go into details. But it's the grace of God. It's the connectivity with the body. It's finding those people. It's having for me, parents, and for Caleb, parents who are locked in from the beginning, lockstep. So true. So both my parents are first generation apostolics, and they raised us in a home that was complete peace. It was wholesomeness, constant. That's all we knew. And then when my cousins, I have all older cousins, when their kids would come over, they would say the exact same thing you just said. I can sleep. There's peace. Because not all of them had, bad homes, but just broken homes in general. And they would come and find a place of peace, and it was like an oasis.
Yeah, it
chaos.
does. It changes something in you. It actually makes you want. And I'd always thought too, like, if I ever have a family, this is what I'll do. We'll have family dinners. Mm-hmm. We'll go to the park. Like, I'll watched. Yes. And yes, I need you to, like, sooner than later, because the way I ate the whole bowl of rice, you guys, is like, it was for an entire family. I ate it to myself, and I was just like looking at our family, hoping no one like was looking for the rice.
I was trying to get you to eat more too.
Oh, well, I ate it all. Well, there's still room, don't you worry. But but you know what another aspect is that I still find myself working on, Danielle, is being willing to let your friends add to your life. I think that's a really big deal. And it's something I have kind of struggled with on and off. Going back to the icing thing, not even the friend themselves, they don't have to have done anything wrong. It's just sometimes when life gets overwhelming, I tend to, my nature is I go into myself.
Okay.
And I try to get it sorted. But especially more recently, I have just like had to fight Mo, you need people. Mm-hmm. You are not an island to yourself. No. Yes. And so reaching out, and every time I do, the love, and I know we keep going back to that, but even just the conversation, the time, all of it adds so greatly to my life that it makes me like thinking, like, my word, I need my friends. Mm-hmm. I need the body of Christ. Yeah. Like, I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah, that's so true. And honestly, that's what Friendeavor is built on.
Yeah.
A lot of people ask me, so like, what is it? What is it? And I'm like, and I don't want to just limit it to saying, oh, we help people with friendship, because it's so much more than that. Yeah. It's about unity within the body. That's our not so secret mission, is that every episode we put out, every post that we put is all geared toward developing a person to be more connected to the wholesome aspects around them. So the body of Christ, their family, their friends, their mentors. And that's what this platform is to teach you how to find relationships like that, navigate conflict when they come up in those relationships, which that's my next question, by the way, and just become a better version of yourself to help other people as well. Because, Monique, people need you too. It's not just you needing other people to add. You are also called to add to their lives.
Right.
And so in situations of conflict, now I'm going to pause right here and say my all-time favorite Monique quote is block her on everything.
Everything. Literally everything.
Block her on everything. I don't even remember what the context was, but
everybody knows me for that, because I'm like, I get like my little finger, I get just like blocking happy.
I was deceased. Like I said, I cannot remember what the context was, but in the situations of conflict, before you get to the block her on everything stage, what are your skills, tips? How do you navigate conflict without it resorting to like middle school, high school girl drama? Like, what are ways that you can help someone navigate stuff like that?
Well, you definitely don't want it to end up there. Now, I have been in situations, no matter what I've tried, outside of part in the Red Sea, I gave my all. And finally, I had to get to the blocker on everything.
Monique Moses over there.
Yes. I mean, I'm just like, Miss Ma'am, what more can I do? But what I do try to do is first try to have an open conversation, because again, how I talked about how I will sometimes ice people out. I have friends who do the same thing. So I recognize that. So I do reach out and I'm like, hey, I'm just checking in. Is anything wrong? Yeah. Is there anything that I've done? Because you can tell, not if just someone just goes completely ghost quiet, but if it's in something with you, like if you've had a disagreement and then they just completely shut down,
the vibes are off.
That something is off.
Yeah.
So then you attempt to reach out like, hey, can we have a conversation? Can we talk about this? And I've had to be willing to admit that I'm not always right and that my perception is not always right. It's mine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always mean that it's the correct one, and therefore everyone must accept it because I said it.
Yeah.
And so I've had to learn to sit down, allow my friends to take the floor and be like, hey, Monique, I really don't like when you joke this way. It makes me feel like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Or when you talk like that, I feel like, and I have to listen.
Yeah.
Because you immediately want to get defensive sometimes and be like, well, I
instantly,
would
yeah.
never. I support you in
Yeah.
all things. Who are you? And go overboard. But the reality is it's like, wait a second. Sometimes you do too much. And if somebody is letting you know you do too much, you need to take that and apologize and say, okay, I'm sorry that I hurt you. What can I do? If this ever arises or something similar, how can I meet you and we can talk about it without it getting to the point of icing each other out?
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
So it goes back to that classic Friendeavor phrase that I think we use too much, but you know what? We'll never get sick of it, is open and honest communication. That seems like such a cop-out, but the open aspect of what you just said is expressing one's feelings, and the honesty is taking it to heart. Like, I am sorry that I made you feel that way. And here's the thing, the defensive thing, they could be saying something off the wall and you're like, okay, that is so ludicrous. I should not even have to apologize for that. But then let's flip that coin a little bit. You can also help that friend navigate that situation, not to the point that you're like, okay, I'm doing this so I can eventually joke about it. That's not the point. The point is, it's like, okay, so this is where I was coming from with this. Right. I didn't mean anything that way. I didn't mean anything by it, but let me tell you where I was coming from, and then maybe you'll see that my perspective was different.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep joking about that because I think it's funny. It's like, this is why I did that. Yeah. I didn't think it was going to hurt you. I wasn't trying to poke a bee's nest or whatever, but and then you have both sides of the conversation flowing.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll accept it, and I've had some friends where they just don't, and that's okay. Or our friendship has, but I've also had to learn I am at a 10 a lot. I've had to learn that sometimes you have to take it all the way down to a 3, and you have to just be like, okay, right now is not the time to joke, or you may not even be joking, but right now is not the time I am just a very expressive person, but you need to be calm right now. You need to be quiet. So sometimes I have to talk myself through that. And you have to do that to keep friendships alive. Like I just cannot always be right, or I will literally just be alone, period. There's just times when you're not right, or if you may be right, but your approach may be wrong, or maybe your approach is even right and you've hurt or you've offended. So you've got to get down to the bottom of it. And even like you said, I don't have to succumb and be like, oh yes, you're right, I'm wrong. No, but okay, I'm so sorry that I made you feel this way. What I was meaning was, blah, 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 blah. If I embarrassed you by saying that in front of other people, I will definitely wait until we're alone before, making remarks like that or bringing that to your attention. Just learning to listen to what they're saying and being a friend. Like, I'm working on being the friend that I want. Right. Like, I have to give respect if I want respect. I have to give time if I want time.
Yeah, that was one of our first YouTube videos actually was, are you trustworthy? Like, are you not trustworthy in the sense of can I confide in you, but are you a good representation of what I would want in a friend? Yeah. Am I working towards being a better friend? Now, I did almost just start laughing out loud because I shouldn't even bring this up, but it's so funny that I'm going to. Because the reason why is that there's a good reason. Because I saw you do this in action. I saw you separate yourself from a situation that was too much because the other person was getting hyper too when we were in Disney World.
Oh. I am hollering.
So people, Monique is 100% on target with this. She said, like, sometimes you just need to talk it out. And okay, before I get into that, I'm going to review what the friendship pyramid is. I'm sure you've seen it on our Instagram, but just a quick refresh. You've got your acquaintances, you got your friends, your good friends, your best friends, and then eventually your spouse. So, and the reason I bring this up is because you and this other person have a very sibling-like relationship.
You can say who it is because
It's
they're
Brett.
legitimately like my sibling.
It's Brett.
He's like been one of my besties for ages.
My actual brother, Kayla's husband, and Monique's pretty much brother. And so they 2 separate times got knocked down, drag out.
We really did. In Disney World
Like,
during COVID.
The happiest place on earth. Like
We were
literally
so
about
unhappy.
to punch each other. One time was in the Soarin' line and another time was in the Epcot ride.
I was so mad.
He was mad. She was mad. Karina comes up to me. She goes, I'm not standing by them. They're too much. So she comes up and stands by me. And honestly, it was like it wasn't a huge conflict. It was just a bunch of little things that kind of built up into one big like, ah! And so basically what happened was Monique was saying, hey, listen, don't joke about that or whatever it was. And then the way we moved through it in our 2-3 day trip was that they both spent a little less time together.
Yes.
For a few hours that day. They just took some time, were separate. They didn't have to
We were still kind. Like we were not like evil, but we were not besties for the resties. And you got to know Brett and I
pretty much didn't talk to each other for the rest of the trip until we got to the airport.
like polite. No, like if I had to see him or if I was next to him, like polite, but I would not make conversation. No. And if you knew Brett and I's relationship, like it was like us, like literally against the world, like we'd be like, okay, oh, are you so annoyed? Yes, I'm so annoyed. And like, even if I wasn't even that annoyed, like we were just going to be annoyed together because we were besties for the resties, right? Not really besties for the resties, but we were just like, whatever we did, we were like, yeah, same. Yeah. But we were not same
and
that
so
trip.
While you were talking about that, I actually forgot. I didn't even plan to bring that up tonight, but then
It's
I was
very
like,
funny.
oh my gosh, that was so, yeah. So they're on the Epcot. We're all on the Epcot ride, the big golf ball looking ride. We're riding through there. And Brett is sitting next to me and she's on the end of the ride and we're trapped in this ride and they're barking at each other across the ride. This is before they realized that they needed to separate each other, not talk to each other. And I don't even remember what it was about.
I do. I was very upset because we were in a store and it was in 2020 and I have never been a fan of the mask mandate. Nobody, please nobody stone me. However, I was very aware, just even on videos, of these young people that would get really harassed when they had to enforce the masks, which it was not their fault. Half of them probably didn't even like it. It was to the point they would lose their job if they didn't.
But they were very chaotic during that window, yeah.
And you couldn't even eat in Disney World. You had to get over to the side. You couldn't walk and eat. Yeah. And they were just freaking out. Well, we go into a store. I'm buying some ears, and Brett is with me. And Brett decides to take his mask off. Well, the young boy says, hey, you got to put your mask on. You got to get out the store. And Brett kind of starts going back and forth with him. Well, I am like, Brett, that is inappropriate. He could lose his job. You just need to obey or get out of the store. And that, like, Brett looked at me like I grew 2 heads. I don't know, again, so this is where I say that sometimes, like, you just have to have a fine line. Not that I was ever mentoring your husband, but I was just like, this is common sense. Like, obviously, they're not even letting us eat. Get your mask on or just get out because he's standing with me and I'm paying. So I'm, like, in a panic because the little boy's in a panic. So the little boy behind the counter is in a panic.
We're going to get kicked out.
Yes. Well, and they had civilians that were, like, through there dressed up and stuff. And if people had their masks off, they're like, hey, if I have to tell you one more time, you're kicked out the park.
Yeah.
We had to.
They were throwing the ban word around.
Yes,
too.
they were throwing it. So I was like, not today. This is my first time in Disney World. Yeah. I can barely breathe in this mask as it is, but I've got to just soak in the happiest place on earth. I was not happy. I was actually not polite when I told it. I mean, it was so rude. I said it in front of like anybody who was in line and anything. So you would have thought that I just threw water in his face because the way that man's looked at me when I said that. And then it was on after that, it was just like little comments. And I'd be like, no, knock it off. Stop talking like that.
For the rest of the day. Eventually.
No, it was more than a day.
Well, no, but the Epcot thing, because that was the first day.
Yes.
So we're in the ride. And since the ride was inside, we had to wear a mask. And because he's restrained and he's separated from her by a couple people, he is just.
Yes.
And she turns. Well, she's trapped in the ride as well. She turns to him. It just lets him have it. And I'm just like running my finger through the sand in like the Epcot ride. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then by the time we get to Soarin', they're still going at it. And Karina's like, okay, that's it. I'm not. So we go to the front of the line, leave them in the back. And that was when that's what would have stopped for the day. Like they had stopped talking.
It stopped for the rest of the trip.
Yeah. And so that's when they decided, you know what, we're better off just not talking to each other. All that to say, like I said, I wasn't intending on bringing it up, but it's so stinking funny that I had to. The communication aspect is going to vary, listener, depending on your level of friendship with that person. Brett and Monique are high on that pyramid together. They're very, very good friends. And so should you snap at a person on the friend tier? Probably not. That's when you need to be having those like, this is how you make me feel and whatever. But sometimes when you're just really close friends, you're going to get to those aspects where you're just like.
And sometimes not speaking for a little bit. So we did not just like, not like we were not friends anymore. No, we were definitely still friends. Yeah. But there did need to be space because it had crossed a line with the both of us to where like if we kept going, like if A, it would have made everybody on the trip just miserable.
Yeah, we were pretty close as it was.
And B, you have to be so mindful because yes, I had snapped at him for snapping at the kid behind the counter. But then it kept going. So let's say it went all of the days of the trip. Okay, at some point you start doing damage that's really hard to repair. Yeah. And so it's better to be like, you know what? We are obviously not seeing eye to eye. We're making ourselves miserable. We're making everyone else miserable. We just need to not speak for right now. And when we get home, we'll get it sorted. Yeah. And we got home, seen each other Sunday at church, got it sorted. And it's been sorted ever since.
Yeah, until the next Disney trip. No, I'm just kidding.
No. I don't think it will be that. Well,
it was the mask thing. It was
the mask thing.
High-strung COVID situation.
And we were constantly being yelled at. Yeah. And Brett is so everybody that I know just about is anti-mask that I'm close to, but Brett is like chief. He is in charge. He is the Martin Luther King Jr. of masks. Okay? He is just like that. He is just moving onwards, just like with this, like, I am going to break this nation of wearing masks. I've had it. Like, but he was like wanting to break the nation of it.
Collapsing on the couch laughing.
I need you to know he wanted to break the nation of it like in 2020. And everybody knows the nation was like holding on to masks for dear life in 2020. And so I was like, Brett, I need to pay. I cannot just sit here and argue with this kid. So, but that is where I overstepped a bound because I did know how he felt about it instead of just being like, oh my word. And when we got out the store being like, Brett, that was way too much. Yeah, like, seriously?
Just leave him alone.
Yes.
Just leave the kid alone.
Well, no, I could have said that outside versus just bust. I mean, because there are people, they're like 30 feet behind me in line, but they were still there. So I said, I just like blew up. And so I have to think about things like that because that is my nature to do without thinking. Like if somebody does something dumb, I'm like, that was dumb. Why would you do that? Well, that was inappropriate and that was dumb to make them feel dumb. So why would you do that? And so I have to like talk myself through things like that and be like, okay, maybe you can talk to them when everybody's not staring and, you know, you're not making them, you're with, so that's my friend. We're standing together. So, you know, to bust them out like that, looking, you know, from somebody else's point of view, it just looked chaotic.
Yeah. And, you know, it's one of those things that you learn from. Yeah. And it was, I mean, it gave me a good laugh. It's still giving me a good laugh.
It's funny now.
It's funny now. It was not
funny then.
I'm sure it wasn't. I've been in similar positions, believe it or not.
And I'm telling you, I'm sure you know better than all of us that your husband, when there's something that he believes in fiercely, he will fight you to the death. He will argue you to the death. And I'm like,
look,
Brett, this kid's like 14. He is a lawyer. The little kid was scared for his life and, you know, shaking, trying to explain to Brett why he needs to put his mask back on. A little 14-year-old. I'm like, Brett Anderson, you know this kid has probably like 2 brain cells. You have got to be nice. I mean, he looks scared for his life as he's trying to tell us we have to get out the store or put on our masks. Like, I felt bad for him because he looked like his soul was going to leave his body mid-sentence.
And Brett is 6'1", you know.
And Brett is like, when he's arguing, he's like, no, this is stupid. Yeah. It's stupid. And it was stupid.
His heterochromia is popping.
And his eyes. Yeah. And, you know, the little kid was just like, well, you're going to have to get out the store if you don't put on your mask. And I'm like, oh, come on, we're Californians. We cannot just steamroll these people. Let's get out of here.
We got to Florida and immediately started trying to call the shots.
Literally. The most Californian thing you could do.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That trip was amazing. But we need to do that again. So I think we talked about this on the pod before, but just to recap. So we were having a Christmas party at my house. I I don't know, like the 19th, December 19th, something like that. And then that night we all decided to hop on a plane and go to Disney World. And the next morning we hopped on the plane, spent the day on the flight, spent 2 days at the parks, flew back on the 23rd. And yeah, that was an awesome trip.
It was so random. Literally, a friend called us and was like, "We're in Disney World. You guys should book flights." And we immediately booked them at like
here,
midnight.
Remember?
Yes.
Zal was here and she was going to leave the next day.
And Ryan and Kelly told us to book the flights.
Yeah.
And a little backstory. This is before Brett and I were together, but he went on a trip with my siblings. And my sister called me that night that they booked their flights. And she said, "Can you watch Evers while we go to Disney World?" I was like, "Oh, why am I not going to Disney World?" But, sure, I'll watch Everly's my niece.
She was pulling out every favor that night. She's like, Karina owes me. Or she was like, Carissa owes me 2 nights. Kayla will cover a night. And then,
that was hilarious.
So originally, Brett and I were going to share a room. And then Curtis and Karina always were going to share a room. And then Mo was able to go. And so we did girls in one room, guys in another room. So that was also awesome. Except for Karina's jet engine fan app. It sounded like there was a plane in our room. Do you remember how loud that thing was?
Honestly, I barely remember much from then. I was so tired. I only remember that when I went into the restroom in our room, there was like hair in the corner and hair in the shower.
We got a crazy good deal in that room. That's why. Because we were going choke.
Yeah, we were. And I was just like so shooketh by the hair. I'm like, what is happening?
Next time we're ballers now, so we can get a nice place.
No. I'll come in last minute, like last time, maybe do a blow up mattress.
All right. Well, there's only one other real thing that I wanted to make sure we got your perspective on. You have a lot of friends from a lot of areas of the country, a lot of churches, a lot of age groups. What is your, if it's not like a process, what is your, like, how do you make friends? How do you make friends with so many people? There's so many people who struggle with making friends. And I know you have a very bubbly personality, which does that, it's a very good connection for you. But what do you look for in a friend? How do you make a friend? How can you, if someone who does not know how to make a friend was sitting in the room with you right now, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say I have different categories of friends.
That's that friendship tier. That's the
yes,
tier. That's the pyramid.
Right, and I really do. So there's some people there, my acquaintances, but most people just know me as bestie. I mean, even Echo at 2 years old, when she sees me, she says, "Hey, bestie," because that is what I say to people. I'm like, "My bestie." And so it's a joke. Everybody's Monique's best friend. But like a friend that... Because there's people when I just see them. I see them once a year, once every 10 years. And I'm like, "Hey." And it feels like we just picked up where we left off. But my friends, the ones that really go through it, because I'm human, they're human, so that really get me through the storms, I would say with those friendships on both of our parts, so we start out being friends, and then I think it's just being dependable, reliable, trustworthy. And I know those things sound very cliche, but those are the things that matter so much.
On the friendship survey, those were like 3 of the top 5 things that people look for in a friend. So.
It really is.
Yeah, communication is definitely a big one.
If I feel safe, for some reason, safety has always been a big thing in my life. If I feel safe, I want to make others feel safe. Yeah. I absolutely do not want someone to feel like their world is going to be upended if they're around me, to feel unsafe or feel like they have to have a guard up. I mean, whatever I have to do to make my friends feel comfortable, to make them feel valued, to make them feel loved. And if I'm not doing that, I hope that I have allowed room for an open conversation so that I can learn how to do that for them. Because it's not like a cookie cutter recipe. It doesn't work for every friend. The same situation doesn't work for every friend. And so I've just had to learn to listen and give and take, and because the friendship is a give and take. So I can give, but if I'm not allowing them to give back, because I've also had friendships like that where I'm like, "Oh my word, let me buy you dinner. Oh my word, let me do this." And the moment they do it for me, I feel so like, no, please don't. I've got this. I can take care of it. Yeah. And I actually had a friend say, "Mo, like, every time we go out, you're asking to get my mail, and there's times when I'll let you, but if I try to do anything for you, it's just like, you've got it covered. You got to take care of it. You don't need anyone."
It's like the,
yeah. And so I've had to even do, I'm like, okay, this is something that matters. And it's true. I need to be able to receive, because if I'm giving and I'm building that relationship where we love each other, then when they come to give to me, if I slam the door in their face,
they're like, what did I do?
Yeah. And so my deepest friendships and my closest friendships, we've just learned, and we don't even talk every day. I was actually telling Danielle earlier, Kayla, that I walked in the house and I was so excited to see her. I said, my word, we're like the besties that we don't see each other for like months on end. And then it's just, we're so happy to see one another. But it's because we have a foundation of, I feel very safe with you. And it's the same with Karina. I said, I just went to lunch with Karina last week. That's Kayla's sister, the one I'm best friends with. And we probably haven't gone out, like her and I, one-on-one, in at least 2 years. And we're just busy.
Yeah.
But it was so nice. It wasn't any time loss. There was no awkwardness to get over. There was no anything, because we already have that trust established. There's no like, oh, well, you haven't talked to me in 6 months. And, when I see you, Danielle, it's not like, oh my word, I haven't talked to you in 3 weeks. I can never, I need distance between us. No, because we have, a solid and a pure foundation. Like, I trust you. I love you. You're my friend. And if I did anything, I feel like you would be like, hey, Mo, that made me uncomfortable when you said that. Can you not say that in front of people? Like, I trust and know that you've got my back. And, I know that you know that I have yours, even without speaking every single day.
Those foundations, I feel like we take those for granted. Not we as in me and you, but just in general, people take those for granted, because there's some people who don't trust the foundation that they're built on. Even if they have a foundation, excuse me, if they don't talk every day, if they're not texting, oh, they never reach out, they're spending so much time thinking about, oh, what did I do wrong, that they forget what they have.
Like, if I was going through something, there's not a shadow in my mind, a doubt in my mind that you would not fight for me spiritually.
Correct.
If I needed it, even in person, like, Danielle, I need somebody to talk to. Like, I don't have to wonder, like, oh, is there an open door? I know there's an open door. And the same is with Kayla and Brett. I know if I ever needed somewhere to just sit for an evening and vent, or I'm like, hey, you guys, I really need help with this, I'm at a loss. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that I could come to you guys and be like, I really, really need something right now. And I can't say that about every single friend. I don't have a just unlimited amount of those type of friends. I do have friends, and I'm not even bashing the friends I have. I love my friends. But you don't have an unlimited resource of those sort of friends where you can just dig one out and just whoever you get is who you get, and they're going to help you through. No, exactly. And so you do cherish those, and our lives as we get older, they are very busy. So I really don't see, my friends I see the most are Echo and Yale, 2 and 6 months. My besties. But I know I have that. So I'm like, if there's ever a time, if hell is coming against me full force, I don't have to go through that alone. All I need to do is send one text, and I have a group of women who are willing to fight hell with a water pistol with me,
Can we talk about the beauty of the body one more time?
Absolutely.
This? Because not only do you have me and Kayla and Brett, you have my parents.
Oh, yeah.
You have her parents.
Yep.
And so just a work friend, 999 times out of 1,000, you are not going to know their work friend's family.
Oh, 100%.
But the body, you came over and you sat and talked with my mom for 15 minutes while we were getting set up. And it wasn't like, oh, like what you've done with your house. It was real stuff. It was a real conversation. And in any other environment, you are not going to have that.
If I went to my coworker's house, I would feel a little bit uncomfortable. I would try to, you be polite, be on your best behavior, but you're not feeling, comfort and at peace and ill at ease and just, happy and warm and fuzzy. It's a totally different feeling when you're with friends that you love and love you in return.
Yeah. When I told my parents, I was like, hey, Monique's coming over for dinner next week. They're like, oh, that's awesome. They weren't like, wait, who's Monique again? It was like, because it's like the definition of a family friend. Like, the whole family is friends with this person. And so, again, the body of Christ is so much more than just a religious organization. It's a community.
And, I feel like it could be, and I don't want to take anything out of context, but it also brings to mind when you talk about the body of Christ that way, not forsaking the gathering of yourselves together. Like,
amen.
You absolutely need the body.
Yes. You have to have it.
Not just once a year, not just once a month. Like, you need the body. Like, I cannot survive without you guys.
No, and those people who come to church events who are backslidden, it's like their only time that they allow themselves to go back to that connection source, because it's like, oh, well, it's a family fun day, it's Christmas or whatever. When in reality, their soul is longing for that
just
connectivity.
for it, yeah.
They want it so deeply, but because they just, for whatever reason, decided to walk away from God, they are now forsaking the body too, and so they don't have that connecting point. And so that's why so many people will show up to Memorial Day.
Yes.
And special services and No Limits.
I mean, and they are on time.
Oh, they are.
And they're there every year.
And they're there to the minute it closes.
Yes. I mean, Memorial Day, we like to believe it's for just like the people who are at the church. Nay, you have never seen, and funerals.
Yeah.
The
funerals.
There are more people that used to go to the church at the funerals
than the people who actually do go to the church. Yeah.
Yes, and it's that connection. There is nothing that fills that void like godly friendship.
Yeah.
That's
and
the
they're
truth.
searching for it.
Yes.
They leave the best place they've ever known, looking for something better, realize there's nothing out there, but
there's not.
Again, for whatever reason, don't come back. But then people do come back. One of the funniest memories I have, I mean, it's not a good memory because of, the situation, but I was at the Memorial Day picnic and a backslider was there, and we were sitting watching a softball game, and they were sitting next to me, and they, in their backslidden state, was judging people's sleeve lengths and skirt lengths.
I'm crying.
Yeah.
Oh, but they very much so
that
do.
Legit happened. I was like, she's like, oh my gosh, look at how short her sleeves are. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Do you not see the paradox here right now?
I have family members that do the same thing. They're like, oh my word, so-and-so, they go and do this and they go and do that. I'm like, okay you do that every day. Yes. And they're just like so infuriated about and just in disbelief. Yeah. I'm like, well, you get on back. You seem like you could be the good church police. You get on back and you come take care of it.
You want to join the Unite team because you can connect this body together.
Yeah. I'm like, we need you. So come on back and get it taken care of.
Get it together. But that's so funny. The root is that they need the body and they're coming back for it. But,
and they know. They know. I mean, it's like they're parched too. They will go up they will wait to talk to you. And I'm like, it's so true. Even not being backslid, if I'm gone, I was sick. I got really sick this last February. And so I did not make it to like 3 church services. And the difference, I mean, by the time I got back, I just was like, oh, God. Everybody love me. Rory, hug me,
Like, I need to break every single person's neck in a hug right now.
And I wasn't around anyone because I was very contagious. I mean, I had extremely high fever. I don't know if I had COVID. I hate to say that. I'm like, oh, God. Brett,
I'm going to have to plug your ears, Brett.
I don't know what I had, but I was very ill. And so I could not be around other people because it was very contagious. I know because I'd been around other people like the first 2 or 3 days, and they also got it. Then I thought I was dealing with allergies, but then when I got the shakes and I lost my taste and I got extreme fever, I was like, I don't think this is allergies. So then I went home and I stayed home. I did not wear masks, but I did stay home because I was sick.
Yeah.
And just being out of church those 3 services, or 2 Sundays and 1 Tuesday.
So yeah, 3.
Really, it had an effect. And yes, I watched online. It is not the same.
The only time I feel like in my life that I've actually come close to experiencing true depression was during COVID.
Yeah.
During the isolation. Before we knew that it was what it ended up being. Yeah. When we were all like, stay home, stay safe, flatten the curve, whatever. Those 2 months before we kind of got wise, I was like as close. I wouldn't say I was fully depressed because
it was hard.
I feel like that term gets thrown around a lot just for someone feels lonely. Anyways, that was the closest I felt. And I live in a great home, but I didn't have the body. And I still, even during that time, I hung out with my best friends during that time. Abby and Lydia, I still hung out with them. And even with those people who mean more to me than like they mean the most to me. Because I was not with the body.
It's true. I
still felt alone.
Yes. No, everyone. Remember when we started going outside into the tent? We were like desperate to be. And everyone was spreading out. But it was just like the relief to be like, oh, I'm with my church. Thank God we're here together.
I was happy to see that guy who was shaking his butt.
And I know exactly.
Mans came up, did a full 180.
The older gentleman?
Bent over, shook his tiny
Yes.
in front of the altos. London and I are
Multiple
about to
times.
pass out multiple times.
Multiple times.
And then he proceeds to tell us that he is besties with Princess Diana. I'm like, sis has been dead for 20 plus
A
years.
plethora of years. No, it was
Shook his
just
butt,
so
and no one stopped
good.
him. Anyways,
No,
sorry.
because we were
You're
so
being serious.
happy.
Go for it.
No, we let him because at
Shake
least
it,
we were
brother.
together. Yes, we're like, go ahead. You're shaking off the sadness. You're
Yeah.
shaking off just how get
I'm
it.
like, this is the first time I've laughed.
Yes. Honestly, it was just so good. And what
Refreshing.
a relief that we're
Yeah.
through that. Thank God. And for people who I don't even understand how they can do, and I know there's circumstances. Sometimes there's travel or there's family events. Or, sometimes there's not. People just don't want to come to church. And I'm like, how? It's my lifeline.
Zero sense to me.
Yeah. It's my absolute lifeline.
Yeah, me too. And like I said, I live in a very loving, wholesome house. But church is the place where I feel the most alive.
Yeah.
And, I don't understand how people don't like hugs.
Danielle, do you ever see when I post that
Does
thing
that make-
about hugs? I literally put a post on Instagram on my story, probably once or twice a year about hugs. There's all these psychological things.
And you know what?
Yes.
That is, because when I was feeling that way during COVID, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, you're smarter than this. Get over it. Read your Bible, figure out what is wrong with you, right? That was my mentality for it. And I was like, I haven't had a hug in 3 months.
Yes, I am such a hugger too. See, I've learned to be very respectful because I did not know boundaries and I would just wrap anybody. If you blinked, I once wore a shirt that said free hugs available here to a Christian festival. And I had to learn, that's probably not the best place to wear this shirt. I had people picking me up. My other friend had one on too. She got people were we have never been hugged so much in our entire lives. But I am a hugger.
Yeah.
I love the connection of just hugging someone.
Yeah.
Because it's to me, it's translating. I'm just letting them know I love you. I miss you. I believe in you. I need you. And sometimes I'm not really that great with words. And I say things and people are like, oh, you're just a hype man. I'm like, no, I adore the ground you walk on. You are my precious rose. But
It's like when you walked in and I was making the tacos and you just extolled every virtue. I'm like, Monique, it's just tacos.
No, they were not just tacos. She is being very humble. They have they were so fancy. But no, because that is my love language. I know people are like, no, that's love bombing, but I am not. I just adore people. I'm like, I love you so much. You mean the world to me. You are just so precious. And they're like, okay, you're exaggerating. I'm like, but I'm not. That is how I express.
Yeah.
And so I know that people get overwhelmed by that. So I try to just put it all into a hug. But some people, Danielle can take it.
I can. And I've been known to lift people up and spin them around on occasion because I just got these massive guns, so I can do that.
The gun show.
But and people have sometimes accused me of not liking hugs, and I'm like,
Really?
okay, you don't know me at all because honestly, it's that's the thing that I realized. I was like, I have not had human connection outside of this house, and when we had that lights off secret youth service.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? That was
Yes.
But then the lights were off the whole time until they suddenly weren't anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am blind. But after that, we were still supposed to be summer, whatever. We went out to the parking lot, and me and this girl who I hadn't seen, who I love, she just about broke every single bone in my body giving me a hug, and I was like, okay, I'm good for right now. You know, it
makes a difference.
It was so nice to be able to put my finger on it.
Yeah.
You know, because I did not like feeling
I know that.
way.
I literally, London, it's so funny because we go back
She's
and
a
forth.
good hugger.
She's
She
one of the
about
best,
kills me
but
at
she
No
does
Limits,
not
yeah.
love, she's not a lover of hugs. She does not love them. But she knows that I love them. And so if I am ever really sad or anything, she gets very attentive. And the first thing she will do is wrap me in a hug. Because even as young kids, she was not the kind that liked you to play with her hair or really hug her and things like that. Mind you, we were teenagers, so I get it. Mm-hmm. But I was such a hugger.
Yeah.
And that is one way that, when people hug, I will hug perfect strangers. I have learned boundaries, so I don't. But if it wasn't such a weird thing, I 100% would.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny because she is not a big hugger, but she's a very good hugger.
She gets the best hugs. I know.
kind of
I'm
mean.
gonna. We need to like
was-
start something like
I know.
a signature thing or whatever for her to just like be an all-time hugger.
You know what's so sweet is that she gave me High No Limits, and she was saying something in my ear, but the way our heads were smashed against each other, I have no idea what she said. And she was talking for like a minute, and I could tell she was being so heartfelt, but I couldn't understand what she was saying, and now I feel bad. And so I am confessing this on a podcast, but it's deep enough in here she won't get to this point. But I was like, I just knew, like, I could hear like every 10th word or something, and she was saying something very sweet. But I'm like, and then she goes, okay, we're not hugging people, and then let me go. And I was like, excuse me. But no,
You're like, actually bring it in one more, sister.
I was like, okay, but then move your head so I can hear what you're saying. But yeah, anyways, the connectivity of the body, of human connection, it cannot be overstated. And so people who turn their back on God, I don't understand the spiritual side of it at all. I don't understand that at all. But even more so, I don't understand the losing the community. Yeah. I don't get that.
Well, and you know what? And a lot of times too, it's when they separate themselves from God, they separate themselves from the community. Because there have been friends of mine that have walked away, and I would reach out like, hey, I love you. I'm still praying for you, and just silence, complete silence. And that is tough to try to really think about and grasp, because I'm like, you are in vast loneliness. Like, how does that work? We are people who have rode the wave with you. And yes, you're making decisions that maybe we're not going to make, but that's with friendship. Your love doesn't just die.
Right.
Like, you're going to be there, and you're going to fight with them, and you're going to push through. And sometimes, there's, some ugly battles that arise. I'm even thinking about with my brother, but the part in my mind is how do you cut, like Danielle said, just cut. I mean, not only do you cut God, I mean, you cut the friendships.
Yeah.
And these are lifelong from a lot of people from birth,
Yeah, given the nature of the community, absolutely.
Correct.
Yeah, it's something that I don't think is talked about enough.
Yeah.
And that is one of the goals of Friendeavor is to bring that awareness and that connectivity. But yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be discussed.
I want to say quickly before we end, the fact that you are the founder of Friendeavor, I mean, there could not be a more perfect person, because you live what you guys teach. Like, that is actually who you are. Friendeavor is an actual definition of who Danielle is.
That's very
and
kind.
so I really, it's already going places, but I really see it actually very funny. I meant to take a picture this morning, but I walked out into my living room, and I have a roommate, and I just was passing the kitchen table, and your book is on the kitchen table.
Aww.
So I don't know who she's reading it with, but she's reading it with someone, so it's making a difference. But to be able to see the author and the creator in real time, because so many people write books, right? And there are some people who write books, and honestly, I cannot even take them serious. I don't even know them. I'll just like see them on YouTube, and I'm like, or you like read something like some great scandal happens, and I'm like, boo boo, like, what is happening? But to see it in real time, you are actually your model, your entire Friendeavor model, and that's just really cool. And it's we can trust it and move forward with it and use it and apply it because you live what you represent and what you put forth for
That's very sweet.
the community.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to thank Monique so much for being with us today. And before we close out, there's one thing I needed to say. Back towards the beginning of when we launched this podcast, Kayla and I were talking about this person in our life who does the absolute worst, gut-wrenching, terrible, want to kill yourself scenarios in Would You Rather.
Oh, no.
And we did not say who it was. We did not say who it was. But she's in the studio with us today.
No.
And so this is not an invitation for you to throw out something that makes me want to kill myself. But
I'll do it.
I am saying that Monique is I feel comfortable enough to reveal this because she's in the studio. We did not bust you out the first time, but I am now. Yeah. So it was Monique. And so we were doing a segment for a while where I would give Kayla a Would You Rather because I would not let her do it because she has gained your skills She said she learned from you, and I'm like, well,
Little Monique Jr.
I was like, you ain't.
Oh, I know he probably hates the game now.
I was
Karina won't even
like,
play.
you're not doing that to me on my own podcast. So,
May I do it on your podcast?
I reserve the right to not say it, and it needs to be Friendeavor appropriate.
100% appropriate. I am
Okay.
an appropriate woman.
Okay, are you lying on my podcast right now?
This was
Do you want
easy
me? Do you want me to
peasy.
pause so you can think about it? Or
No.
Do you already,
Oh.
she's already got one.
I can get them right off the top of my head.
I do reserve the right to refuse it.
Okay, totally fine. But this is not that hard. This is something so easy.
Hold on, I gotta get
I won't even bring like men and
Exactly.
okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Would you rather live in a house where your pets were 10 million lice and they were free crawling? Okay.
Why do
All
you
over the
already
house.
have this queued up? Why is this something that you already know?
10 million lice. You are like so happy you love them. You leave out little treats for them. You do everything for them.
Oh wait,
right?
the pet are lice?
Yeah, your
I'm
pet.
scratching my head
yes,
right now.
yes,
Just thinking
I
about
did
that.
too. Yep, they're 10 million. And you live in a 1-bedroom flat.
I thought you just said it was a mansion.
No, I didn't say mansion. Did you hear
that's what you
mansion?
said.
No,
Okay,
that was your
okay,
mind opening.
okay.
Frank.
I was trying to
Nay,
make it
nay.
better.
Yeah. No, you live in a 1-bedroom flat. You have 10 million lice as your pet, or
Why is it that many?
it's just like a obnoxious number. And you feed them like little flakes of dandruff.
Ew!
Okay. or would you rather live in a 1-bedroom flat and have 20 million roaches
Monique,
free crawling?
what on
and
earth?
you leave out bread for them. They sleep in the bed with you. You have some named, like you let them cook with
not-
you.
Oh, this
Which
is like letter of the law technically appropriate, but this is not what I deem.
It is 100% appropriate. Am I right, Kayla?
And it's pretty mild.
It is not.
This is so mild. I mean, Helen Keller could answer this.
Do you remember?
Okay.
Lord.
So
I need to think on that for a second. But do you remember the one that you asked me in Disney World?
I don't know, because I've asked over 1 million times. My coworkers won't even answer them anymore.
I honestly am very much considering not answering this one either. Why does it have to be a 1-bedroom flat? Why
because
can't it be,
there's just
why can't it be like a nicer house?
No,
Like,
because
there's no perks in either one of these.
I set the stage. Okay. 1-bedroom flat for one. I will change it. I usually never change.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's like I feel like Would You Rather seem to have like
Okay.
a little glimmer of hope.
So I
somewhere
will
in
do
there.
it. The 1-bedroom flat for the lice, and then a broom closet for the millions of roaches.
Okay, the lice, obviously.
Well, there you go.
I am
And
devastated.
don't forget, you feed the lice dandruff.
20 million roaches in a broom closet. That's the alternative.
Yes. I tried to give you a flat, but you started complaining, so I had to take
I
you
am
down.
still complaining. Both of these are horrible. It's never two good options you're choosing from. You're choosing
Honestly,
from
that
two,
was so mild.
two
I'm
pits
like,
of hell is what you're
No,
choosing from.
that was so mild. I'm almost embarrassed that this is what the listeners had to hear, because I have
Thank
some
God.
good ones.
No. I'm still scarred from the one that you asked me at Disney
What
World.
did I ask you at
It was
Disney World?
actually about. Well, I don't
Was
really
it
want to get
about-
into it. It was about the guy who came in front of Frontline. That was one of the people in
I
it.
am hollering.
And
That
there-
sounds about right.
Yeah.
I would totally use. Yep.
Yeah,
That's
there
definitely
was
something
a
I would do.
deserted island involved in that
Yes.
one.
Yes.
And was there a hot tub?
There was
Because
a
I'm
hot
queen-
tub.
I
There
am
was a
queen
hot
of hot
tub.
tubs.
There was a hot tub. Yeah.
I almost said hot tub this time, but I tried to be unique and different. And
Thankfully,
so I, said broom
I
closet.
can't remember what the other one was. But I
It was
think
probably someone with cystic acne, head to toe, thinning,
Okay.
no teeth, gum disease.
I
I tend to do that a lot.
thank you so much for coming on Friendeavor the podcast. I'm your host, Danielle. Oh my gosh, that was awful.
It was.
What a good conversation that ended so horribly.
No, that just shows all friends should play Would You Rather. I'm banned from playing it at work, and all of my friends so far won't listen. But if there's anybody out there, please.
Guess who's
Danielle
banned
will
on
give you my phone number. I will
Guess
play
who's
Would You
banned on
Rather.
the podcast now? You are also banned from playing it on here. You are welcome to come back as a guest, but you are banned playing.
I
Would You
tried,
Rather
you
on here.
guys.
Oh, anyways, we thank you so much for being on Friendeavor, the podcast with us, Monique. We actually do
Yes.
hope that you will come back maybe next season if you're interested. Because honestly, we could just sit here and talk all night with these mics on and not get tired of it. So thank you so much for listening to Friendeavor, the podcast this week. We've got a few more episodes coming up in this season. We're going to be ending season 1 around the end of May. So you got about 2 more months of us. We were actually not planning on releasing an episode last week because it was my spring break, but it worked out. And so by the time you are listening to this, I am now 28.
Woo!
So
It's
that's
Friday.
something that I just realized that I'm going to be 28. And when I started this, I was 25 when I started
Wow.
Friendeavor. So
Wow.
I'm getting ancient. Anyways, thank you so much for joining us this week. We hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. And we will see you next time on Friendeavor, the podcast.
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Friendeavor, the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you enjoyed today's content, leave a review and share with a friend. You can find the show notes on our website, www.friendeavor.net, and in the description of this episode.
Friendship is a journey. It's an endeavor. We'll see you next time on Friendeavor.